Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I am so excited we're spending this time today. We have an amazing show lined up. Our first guest is Karen Owen-Lee, and she's here today to talk to us about caring for an aging parent. Now, it doesn't matter what age bracket you fall in, we all are going to know somebody who's coming to that point where they need a little extra help. Now, Karen caught her passion of gerontology, the study of aging, from her mother, a college professor who started the first gerontology accredited program at York College of Pennsylvania. Karen completed her master's in gerontology from Pennsylvania State University and went on to work with seniors in 5 states and over 40 retirement community centers. Today, Karen is a keynote speaker, best-selling author, and senior placement expert who has helped thousands of families navigate the endless options of senior care. So let's welcome to the show, Karen.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, my goodness, what a joy it is to have you here. And you're really touching on a topic that I think everybody needs to be paying attention to nowadays, and that's caring for aging parents.
And, we wait until until something happens. I get calls every day that, oh my God, my mother's broken her hip. And I just want people to realize that there are things that you can look for ahead of time just to stay on top of it. So, that's what I thought we would cover today.
Oh, without a doubt. And I know, a lot of times people think, and you're right, they think, gosh, this is something down the road, and I don't really want to worry about it now. I don't want to even think about it now. But it's something that if they don't, it doesn't get better. It's like having a cavity.
Mm-hmm.
You might ignore it and then think later, I'm just going to ignore it and mysteriously it'll get better, but it won't. You have to actually deal with it and confront it, and then it's not that big a deal,
Right. And that's a whole family, get the family together, get the planning together, and be ready. That's what I do my public speaking on, because you can be 20 years old and something happens to a friend, to your grandparent, something like that, and there's nobody else to step in. So you really need to step in and be prepared.
Well, and you're right. So it doesn't matter if we're a millennial, if we're, somebody who's older and have parents that are older. This can happen at any time. A dear friend of mine, his wife had a stroke while, in childbirth, and ended up being incapacitated. And so things happen where we have to really kind of, we have to shift gears and start looking at things a different way. So what are some, I know that you have warning signs that we should look for, and they're just things that, as a caring friend, child, adult child, that we should kind of look for in our family members and the friends that we have, just to see if they need help in any way. So what are some of those warning signs?
Sure, and you never know when something shifts. That's why every time you see your loved one, you ought to look for these things. And one is nutrition. Are they gaining weight? Are they losing weight? The next one is hygiene. Are they bathing, dressing? With my father, he wasn't shaving. And I just want to bring up one point regarding hygiene, and that is brushing the teeth or cleaning the dentures. It influences so many diseases, and so I'd like to bring that up to everybody. Check on it if you can.
Yeah. Well, you would really, and I'm going to interrupt here for a minute.
Sure.
You would really know about the study of all this because you have a master's degree in this, right?
Right. I have a master's in gerontology. I'm second generation, so I've been doing this for 30 years.
And you help family members, and so you know, like, the certain things to look for when it's time to start evaluating, like, where are we in the process of having to go ahead and take care of an aging parent or family or loved one.
Right, and I do family and individual consulting so that we work through the process together so that you can, as you said before, plan ahead of time instead of waiting till that crisis time. So that's what and even in the crisis time, I certainly can help families and individuals. So,
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it was just something. As we were talking, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, we didn't even talk about that. So we talk about nutrition. You want to make sure that they're eating well and just not eating Twinkies. I know sometimes when seniors are by themselves, we need to check on them because they will resort to just really unhealthy choices as far as food's concerned, right?
Well, and I'm single and, I don't want to cook. Who wants to cook for one person? So
I get that.
Yeah. So I recommend that when families bring over food that they date it. Put a date on the container so that they know how long it's been sitting there and it's not getting moldy, and so you stay on top of it.
And then they can sign up for programs like Meals on Wheels as well, that kind of help make sure that they're getting some healthy diet.
Right, but there are restrictions on that. They have to, for Meals on Wheels, you can be incapacitated. It just can't be anybody that can get a meal. So there are some stipulations, but there are many, many programs that will bring out meals. So that's not the only one. It's just the one that's best known.
And we talked about hygiene, about shaving and brushing teeth. Any other thing in regards to hygiene that we should be aware of?
They should be bathing twice a week, and for hygiene, I think you should look at their do they stink?
Mhm.
So you'll know that.
Bathing? Do they need help with?
Right.
They have a UTI or something like that. Do they
need
help with that whole process?
Right. The next one is toileting, and that's just if they're soiling their underpants. And the really weird one is smell their easy chair. And if it has a real odor in it, they may be covering up that they are incontinent of bowel or bladder. So that's the easiest way. And you can introduce pull-ups like you do with children, but they don't want to give up that independence, so they frequently will not wear them.
Well, and I'm glad that we're talking about this now, because for most people this is kind of like an embarrassing topic, but it's something that really needs to be addressed if we are going to be caring for our loved ones or friends or a family member that all of a sudden we find ourselves kind of in this situation. There are certain things we do have to assess. So even though they might be embarrassing for the person that's going through this, being able to approach it with love and compassion, say, hey, no worries, let's just see what's going on, and keeping things light and easy is, I think, a good way to approach it. Do you have any suggestions in regards to that?
There are two that I have. One is if there's a topic that you need to cover and it's sensitive, call the physician ahead of time before the next appointment and leave a message that you would like to have these things covered. Then the family member doesn't look like they're getting too nosy. So
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it puts the burden on the physician. And the other thing is, if you start a personal conversation, a difficult conversation is the way I like to put it, is the two words I like to start with is what if.
Yeah.
And then you can address any issue whatsoever, but those are the first two that I like to use. And I've recommended that for years and years and years, and a lot of my clients have really liked that. It's easy to remember.
Yeah. Well, and it makes it kind of easy because then, we can look at situations and come up with solutions if we say, well,
Yeah.
what if this happened or what if that happened? So what would be the solution is kind of what that's leading to.
Just trying to come up with a plan. So, but again, some of these topics are very, very,
they're sensitive.
personal. Yeah.
Now, I know the next warning sign, because you and I kind of chatted a little bit ahead of time here, you were talking about it being like if they have any problems walking. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. If they're walking next to the wall and holding on to it, or if they walk around their residence, either an apartment or a house, and they're holding on to furniture, they're wobbly, they're not using their cane, they're banging their wheelchair into walls, all of those are things to look for. And the great solution for that is to ask the doctor for a resident safety check evaluation, and occupational therapist or physical therapist can come out and do that, and it's usually covered by Medicare. So why not do it?
Well, and I think that's great because then you can start having some assessments happening where we can kind of really get a good idea of what's happening with our loved one,
Yeah. And my biggest thing is to get rid of throw rugs. My goal is to fill up one of my garage bays with old rugs just to get them out of their home because they trip and fall on them. The other thing is
so it's a slip hazard on that one.
Oh, a trip, yeah. And one of the doctors told me, orthopedic surgeon told me, is that the slippers that just have a piece of fabric over the top of it, they love to wear those because they match their nightgowns or whatever. And those are, again, fall and slip hazards. So get rid of those.
Well, yeah, we do want to make sure that the environment is safe no matter what, because, we don't want to have more problems arise. We want to make sure that we're able to address the problems that have shown up. And so what about their mental state? Is that something also, like if they start forgetting things a lot or they're just not kind of clear on some things, what can we do then?
Well, it's usually short-term memory that they lose first, so you'll be well aware of that. But the long-term memories, when you were growing up, your wedding, those types of long-term memory things, they will remember. The first thing I recommend is to call the Alzheimer's Association hotline. It is fabulous with the answers. And then it's time to go see the doctor and get some testing done. If your senior wanders away, which I hear time and time again, oh, they'll never do that. Well, they're so confused and they want to go back to their old house or they want to go back to the house they were raised in. There is what's called a silver alert, and that's just like the Amber Alert, and they'll put it out there across all of the media to locate the senior, and that is free of charge, of course, and it is an extremely effective program.
Okay. So there's resources there regardless what's going on. So let's say I have a loved one and they only have a couple of these. Maybe they're forgetting things a lot and maybe the nutrition isn't that good, but they seem to have some of the other things, the other warning signs that we should be paying attention to. Those are still okay. When do we have conversation? How do we assess these things?
Well, I'm so glad you said that. The physician can do the assessment, the therapist can do the assessment, but the outcome or an alternative to that is to have home health come in. And it may just be someone that comes in and makes meals and dusts and she can bathe, he or she can bathe the person, and take care of those items so the adult child can stay on the job and not have to quit or take a lot of time off. So there are many, many community resources that you can use. Of course, it does cost. Some of them are free. But I would really look at that as far as getting a backup for you, because the first person that gets ill is the caregiver. It's not the senior. So you really need to watch your own health.
I think a lot of times when a situation like this happens, it can either be kind of progressive, and so we get used to seeing our loved one, either they're kind of, maybe they're forgetting things a lot and their nutrition's bad and we're bringing them food and they're not really eating. We kind of become a little complacent as far as that's concerned.
Right.
And then we just kind of get, well, that's how they always are, without going into, well, maybe we really need to have further assessments done, and it would be a safer situation for them to either have some kind of home health or start looking at maybe facilities that are transitional, so that they at least are part of a community. They're not isolating, because isn't isolation like a big deal too?
It really is, because even if you have home health come in, it's just one person. And in the community, you have a lot of activities. You get in the van, you go for a scenic drive, you go to Walmart, Kmart. Well, Kmart's not doing well, but
but you're at least able to get out and do some shopping and get and do different events and really interact with other people. So it's keeping. I would think that it's kind of keeping us younger as opposed to more, because I think a lot of times when people look at that, they look at it like, well, that's a lack of my freedom, as opposed to they're doing so much more. It's really opening up the world,
One other thing that, pardon me, I'd like to mention is that there are doctors that will come to the home and do the treatment and evaluation. So that's a really great option if your senior isn't mobile.
Yeah. So, and you touched on something a little bit ago, and I kind of want to circle around to that. So what if, we have a parent or a grandparent, and somebody or a friend that now we're responsible for, a spouse, whoever it may be, that we're now responsible for, but we're working full time. How do we navigate that, and how do we balance both?
Well, it depends on the emotional situation with the child, with the adult child. Do they feel comfortable with using an outside resource, or go to their HR department, and there's a employee handbook that has all the types of leave in there. One thing you need to do is, how much time do you really need to be with the senior, or can you have somebody come in? Now, at night, you can work all day and have them stay with you at night. However, Alzheimer's has a step in the disease, what's called sundowners. And the senior sleeps all day, so they're up all night. And if you're an employee, you can't do that. You got to get some
Yeah.
sleep. So it's just a variety of options out there.
Yeah. I mean, at least it gives people some choices. So, and then, so if we're at a point where we really have to make a choice, I actually was talking to a gentleman the other day that actually moved to live with his aging parents here in Colorado and had to give up his job and be a full-time caretaker. Is there a way to still keep our employment and be a caretaker? Are there options for that? Or is it sometimes that's just what we have to do during that time?
I'm so glad you brought that up. Long-distance caregiving is certainly an option. They can stay where I had a customer that was in Florida. He stayed there and he was the primary caregiver for his mother here in Denver. Or if you come to your parents' house, you can always do remote work with a computer and, Skype and everything else that's available. And at least you're there for your parents if you need to, give them lunch or something like that. You don't have to run home from your job and do it. You're just right there. Every company is different. And there are new ways or new types of leaves that I had a customer the other day that was at wit's end, and we just came up with another kind of leave. She was going to go in at midnight and work till 8 in the morning, and then she could be with her parent all day long. Well, that wasn't in the handbook. They just came up with it. We just thought about it and said, unfortunately she'll be there all alone, but she'll get the hours in, and if you don't work, you don't get paid, you don't get your benefits, and and health insurance is probably the number one.
Yeah. It starts a whole another slew of issues when people are already trying to juggle so much. It's really tough. And even businesses, small, medium, large businesses, they want to be there to help and support people when they're going through difficult times. What are some of the things that you've seen businesses do and able to support an employee? They've had an employee for a long time. They really want to support this employee to be able to continue working like you were just talking with this other lady.
Well, many of the employees won't talk about it because they're too scared of losing their job. I had one client that lived probably 500 miles from her parents, but she would go up there for a week and then come back and work for a week. It just happened to work out for that particular corporation. But corporations need me, need someone like me to come out and educate the employees on what alternatives are out there regarding community resources, and then the types of leave that you can take. So it's just a combination of brainstorming.
Well, I would think that you work a lot, because I know that you've had massive, these Fortune 500 companies have hired you to come out and do talks to not just their employees, but also their HR staff, because really they're looking for this bridge and able to deal with these situations, because we're kind of at this crisis point with our seniors today. We have so many seniors that are turning the age of 65 on a daily basis. And what were the stats on that again? I know you know this inside and out, So I think it's 10,000 people a day.
10,000 a day are turning 65, yes.
Yeah. So, and they're living longer and they're, developing some of these issues that we haven't really had to deal with in this kind of capacity in the past. So with all this stuff going on, we do have to prepare and be ready for these kind of discussions and talks. And employers are very keen that this is something that they also need to get ahead of instead of getting behind,
Well, what's so funny is the majority of corporations aren't looking at it. They understand how to take care of an employee with a child because they've done that forever. The appointments, the dental appointments, the doctor's appointments, whatever it might be, but it hasn't clicked in that they also need to set up a program for the seniors. And I
guess
call
as they see that more and more, they'll have to, right?
Right. I call it the hidden lost revenue. Come on, managers, let's start looking at that and tallying up that and put it in the budget.
Yeah.
So that's one way of addressing it, and then knowing the resources and figuring out how much time the employee needs off. So every situation is different. There's nothing that's exactly the same, but my big push is to have the plan in place before the crisis hits.
Mhm. Well, and it's just getting prepared and having these discussions and figuring out, okay, so where are we financially? If something happens, what would we do?
Well, you bring up an excellent point, and it's not only financial, but it's also legal. You've got to go to an attorney and get those papers in place so that there is somebody to take over if your parent would, let's say, be comatose. Who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to take over if they have Alzheimer's and handle their assets? So there's a lot to look at. They just don't think of it until it happens.
Yeah. Well, and it would be, it's easy to see that. I've known people from all ages, from all walks of life that have had to deal with this in one capacity or another. That's why when, we were talking and connected with you, I was like, oh gosh, we've got to have you on the show and talk about this, because it's something that needs to be brought to the forefront. And we start having these discussions. Corporations start looking at how can we start supporting our employees that do need to take the time off to be with family members or a spouse or a loved one. So it's something that's not going to go away with time. In fact, it's going to escalate with as many seniors as we have moving forward, right?
Right, and just think of that, what I call the sandwich generation that has little children at home, and they have to take care of their elderly parent. It's really time consuming. So getting the plan together for the senior will alleviate a lot of the stress. And that means that every family member, the minister, the next door neighbor, everybody can be involved with the care. Taking them out to lunch for the socialization that you mentioned before. It just gives, what the point is to release stress for the caregiver. And my big thing is that I want every senior to be safe and comfortable, no matter what their health.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, these are people that we love and care about. We want to make sure that they're taken care of, just as we would take care of ourselves. So,
right.
Karen, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today. What is a website that people can connect with you on?
It's Karen Owen-Lee, KarenOwen Lee.com.
Well, thank you, Karen. I know that not only as a speaker and an author, you are here helping seniors and corporations and just, everyone move forward with this discussion, educating and helping with housing options. So thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today, Karen.
Bless your heart for having me, and best of luck to everybody out there. Do it now, not later.
Definitely. Well, make sure to get in touch with Karen Owen-Lee. That's KarenOwenLee.com. We're going to pause here for a quick break, and we will be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1-2-3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074, 630-881-1074.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited we're spending this time today. Our next guest is Ginny Scales-Medeiros, and she's here today to talk to us about her book, What is Normal? So Ginny was actually raised in New York, and she now resides in the San Francisco area, and she's an entrepreneur with several patents and trademarks. So Ginny's products have been featured on QVC, have made appearances also on NBC, CBS, and Fox News. So let's welcome to the show, Ginny.
Thank you.
My goodness, what a courageous woman you are.
Well, thanks for that, too.
Well, it takes a lot. I mean, your book was phenomenal to begin with, and I can see why it's getting the rave reviews that it is. But it's also very honest and very, you're talking about many subjects that most people don't have the courage to talk about.
Well, it was important for me to be able to share it at this time because I started hearing from people around me that it inspired them and helped them get motivated in their lives and get back on track.
Well, and I think that your life just really provides such great motivations on many different levels. I mean, your book, What is Normal? The main character, Sue, is based on your life. Was there a certain reason that you chose to write the book in that way as opposed to using your own name and experiences, or this was just an easier way to kind of talk about a lot of difficult discussions?
Yes, I use Sue. Well, first off, my mother just randomly called herself Sue. That wasn't her name when she and my father went their own separate ways. So I picked that name because of that. But I also had more freedom in leaving some things out, maybe adding some things so that the story has a bigger impact on the people that are reading it. I was told initially that I had a literary agent and a publishing contract before I was done writing this book. And they said, we can't have it just so heavy, to where people just feel like, oh, I just can't read this book. So I thought, you know what, then I'm going to call her Sue, and we're not going to make it so heavy so that people enjoy the book, along with realizing that we're all born at a particular time in space on purpose with gifts and talents. And Sue, like myself, used those gifts and talents and had a blind faith in my gifts and talents. Kind of like the Wright brothers had a blind faith when they looked at the metal and they said, I'm going to make this fly. For some reason, I just knew that I wanted more than what I was getting. Like the story takes place deep in the backwoods, as you know, in the late 60s, and I lived with my family in a rundown trailer that was originally going to be a chicken coop. And out of that, I ended up moving out on my own at 15. Sue ended up moving out on her own at 15. But I was able to buy my first home by myself at 23, and I invented and created a product, and later became a pioneer in the electric auto industry. I was who I was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that Marianne, because I didn't have a lot of parenting, because my parents were teenage high school dropouts, I think that was a double-edged sword. There was a good thing and there was a negative thing, but it all worked to serve the purpose of me being me. And that was that nobody told me that I couldn't, so I knew that I could. Sometimes people get so educated that they're sure that they can't. Like, for example, when I created and patented a product and I said, I'm going to get this product in the world-class spa resorts, people told me there's no way you're going to do that. It's only one SKU, meaning one product. These big spa resorts, they have people come in with a whole line so that they buy their shampoo, conditioner, everything from one manufacturer. There's no way you're going to get it in. And they told me that. I didn't believe it, and I hadn't had enough people tell me that I couldn't do it to where I knocked on doors and I did it. I was told I couldn't get the product on QVC by some people around me, but my point is I didn't believe it, so I made cold calls to QVC until I got a hot body on the phone and gave them my 1-minute elevator pitch and got a face-to-face meeting and sold my product on QVC. But my point is that the parenting that I had was so limited that I didn't know from anybody that I couldn't. So I always thought that I could. And so my point is that my life story and why I wrote the book and why I called her Sue was to have the freedom to really share the lessons that my life taught me and is teaching the people around me, if that makes sense to you.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I think it sometimes, especially when, one has a traumatic life. I mean, there are some similarities from your story to my own personal journey, and it makes a lot of sense to be able to refer it to as maybe a character or a third person, because some of it just can be pretty heavy, as you're saying. But I really do applaud you, because it does take a certain amount of courage to bring that up, and then also to realize that, hey, you know what? I'm not stuck here. That doesn't. I'm going to create my own future.
Right.
Well, and I think it's easy for people, a lot of people, if they are in poverty or have gone through child abuse or sexual abuse or have had traumatic experiences, it's easy to get into a mindset that life is limited for them.
Yes. And this is the thing that I truly believe, and I feel Sue in this book, also known as me, is a testament to almost being a seed where I am supposed to be who I am. And I think it's interesting, but I think that drugs and alcohol or overspending or gambling or whatever it is, these things try to take us out of the game of life, or they try to keep us from being who we were born to be. Mm-hmm. And this is something where Sue struggled with that. I struggled with that along the way. And I really felt like there was this force. It's like we're born in the physical world and everything's contrast. There's no up without a down, and you don't know who you are unless the opposite of that is there. Like Dr. Wayne Dyer said, if you're in a white room and you're white, how do you know you're white unless the opposite of that comes in? You would never know. And I feel like and felt like the whole time there was this tug on me to keep me from being me, to keep me from doing what it was that I came here to do. And through all the odds and adversity, I made it. Sue made it through it, but constantly doing things and also having people around say, how did you do that? Oh my God, I thought that couldn't be done.
Yeah.
Buying my first home at 23 when I only finished the 9th grade, and that was in the California home market. But in the book, Sue starts out digging for worms, digging for treasure, and ended up finding worms and then selling them to the local fishermen, and then later moves out at 15 and gets in the car business and sells a car the first day, sells a car every day for a month, top salesperson for 6 years in a row, makes the front page of the newspaper. And then I started a clinic for women on how to buy cars, and this was when there really weren't any women in the car business. But the struggles to keep me from being me and kind of a pioneer in the auto industry was the drugs and alcohol, to try to just take me out of the game, to keep me from my little piece of being who I'm supposed to be here. Like you are you, and you're supposed to be here, and all the other people that read my book and just say they gave up on who they were and they just settled for perhaps working, going home, watching TV, working, going home, watching TV. Mm-hmm. They let go of their contribution, which actually is where you get your passion and where we contribute to our world that we were born into.
Yeah. And, and that's a big thing. I mean, a lot of people, just going through one of these things is tremendous, but also then dealing with, drug and alcohol addiction. At what point did you decide that you needed help for that? What was a catalyst for that?
Well, and in the book it talks about it. I was in the auto industry, did very well, and in the 80s, there was a lot of coke and alcohol and that environment around the auto industry. So I had to get to a place where I was pretty much sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then I remember reading something about some women that were housewives, and they, started drinking wine every day. And pretty soon it was taking them out of being involved in their children's lives and that kind of thing. And I said, wow. And then it talked about AA, and I went to my first AA meeting, but I didn't stay clean and sober the first time around. I do remember going to my first meeting, and it's in the book, where I just felt relieved. Oh, I'm not in charge anymore. I can let this go and turn it over to whatever it is that people want to believe. You can believe it's, the spirit of the universe, nature, God, creator, whatever you want to call it. Water's wet. You can call it agua, H2O. It still is what it is. But I remember feeling relief in knowing that whatever made me, whoever creator was, whatever the energy source was in charge. And I let go for a while, but I went right from going to meetings to wanting to be the one that was leading other people. They call it two-stepping, where I went, right from the beginning to, instead of going through the 12 steps of the program. Well, there's a lot of different programs out there, but I didn't stay the first time, but I was 23 years old and I stayed clean and sober for 7 years. And then like it says in the book, I had a baby. I was sober all the way through my pregnancy. Then I had the baby, and the doctor said, here's some Vicodin. And Marianne, I didn't need any Vicodin, but since the doctor gave it to me, I thought, woohoo, and I had one.
Let's do this. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do this. Yeah. And then I had a Vicodin, and then it was like, gee, a glass of champagne with a Vicodin would be great. I just had a baby. And the next thing you know, I'm off and running, and the relief that gave me in the beginning was wonderful. But the problem is that that's the trickery of it, is that it feels like freedom in the beginning, and it ends up being far from freedom. Yeah. I would be, wondering, let's see, am I going to get my bottle of wine on my way to work or on my way home? Because I was afraid to have any quantity here because I knew I would drink it till I was sick. So, all these things that I did, I poured out one glass and drank the rest so that I could say I didn't drink a whole bottle. I told myself all kinds of things. But fortunately for me, I had a strong connection with creator, source, and internally, I really wanted the connection. That's what I missed the most. And that is completely gone when you're under the influence of drugs and alcohol.
Well, and I think, a lot of times people can relate, and this is why I think your story offers so much hope, because regardless where someone is on their journey, you show time and time and time again how well that you can excel when you put your mind to it, when you put your heart to it, and when you just, persevere. Yeah,
that is, I in my biography, biography, it says what's my favorite book is The Little Engine That Could. Mm-hmm. I think I can, I know I can, and that really is who I am, and I am so grateful for that part of me because it has sustained many a trial and tribulations throughout my life. And yeah.
Well, and it kind of just shows how you've really overcome all the things. I do want to touch on you were 15 when, and we talked about a little bit, but you were 15 when you called QVC and had a product listed on there, which seems like an act of God to get that to happen.
Yes. I was actually 15 when I moved out, and then I bought my first house at 23, and because I got in the car business at 19 as a female in a male world, mm-hmm. and in that dealership, the adversity was that I made the guys look bad, so they were sure I was sleeping with my customers to make car deals, and the women in the office who were giving me paychecks that were 3 times theirs resented me as well because I was a high school dropout and a teenager. But it was later on that I patented and created the product for QVC. Now, I do remember, Marianne, being out on the car lot one day, and in my mind I said, I want to create my own product and sell it. I had done so well selling somebody else's product. And so I thought, you know what, I want to create a product. I remember that thought, and then the seed was planted. Now, it was planted earlier in the second grade, which is also in my book, because I was in second grade and the teacher was talking about Eli Whitney, who had invented the cotton gin, but actually never even worked around cotton in his life, and how that revolutionized machinery and making tasks that we did and chores that we did that took days, brought it into something that could be done with a machine in a short period of time. In my mind, in that second grade class, Marianne, a light bulb went on for me, and it was like, I get it. Those ideas come from someplace else. They're coming from Creator. They're coming from Source. They're coming from this, whatever this is that made the trees, the flowers, me, and everything else. That's where it's coming from. He was given that idea, and I want one too. And I believe that I was going to get one. And I believe that everybody, I believe whether it's music, art, ideas, it all comes from that place. But at that moment in the second grade, I thought, all right, I want one of those too. And then later, when I was on the car lot and I had done so well, I was in the newspaper, and I was doing clinics for women on how to buy cars. And I had bought my first home at 23, my second house at 27. I said, I want to sell something that I made myself, because the most important thing with anything, whether it's a building, a business, anything, is the first thought. That's creation. And even in the Bible, the first verse of the Bible, which is one of many books, but in that book, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness fell upon the face of the depths, and God said, let there be light. Spoke it into existence. My thinking was the thought was a gift to me from Source, and I spoke it into existence. And that's where I created my Sunless Tanner. And knowing where it came from, I also knew I also have the ability from that source to manifest it and make it a reality here, and also make it a success. So I always believed that. So I knew when I made phone calls to QVC, somebody on that line was going to be the right person. Somebody.
Yeah. But it was just a matter of getting the right person to talk to so that you would be able to keep moving. It was that perseverance. You just kept doing it regardless what was happening.
You have to have the belief in knowing that I do the footwork and I leave the rest up to Source, Energy, Creator, God, whatever you want to call it. But I believe that it's a team effort. I do plant the seeds, and I leave the rest up to God, and it happens and works out always the way that it's supposed to.
Well, it's so nice to be able not to have to be in charge of everything. So that's actually, I'm sure for many people, very inspiring. And that kind of leads me to my next question for you. I mean, if you look back on your life, and you've done so many great things, you've gone through such tremendous tragedy, what was an inspirational moment that just turned your life around?
An inspirational moment that turned my life around.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are probably many of those that were out there. Just, something, either somebody said something to you or something you came across, or even like how I've seen a lot of times during our discussion, it's just your belief.
It is. Well, I guess a couple things. One is that when I was younger the teacher was talking about Eli Whitney inventing this machine that was going to revolutionize the society, without even ever working around cotton, and that's what it was, a cotton gin. That turned my life around. Then when I was a little older and there was a show called Bewitched on, and everybody wanted to be Samantha, but I wanted to be Darren Stevens, because he would get a product and then he would create a way to sell it. I was fascinated with that. I knew that's what I wanted to do. So part of why I create things is because I have a natural love of selling them. To me, there's nothing better than a cold call. And if I can make a cold call to QVC and get a product on QVC, or make a cold call knocking on doors to world-class spa resorts, when I was a kid who was raised in a trailer out in the middle of nowhere, that was not my world. That was like an adrenaline high for me. That validated Ginny, because digging for treasure as a kid, I found worms, and then I decided I'm going to sell them to the fishermen. I undercut the local bait and tackle places, and I sold my worms. So on my website, it says addicted to creating, because I create it and then I get to sell it. The car is somebody else's. But anyway, so Darren Stevens was an inspiration for me. The teacher in the second grade was a turning point for me. Realizing that the grips or the dark side, whether you say God, the devil, light, darkness, positive energy, negative energy, as much good as I had giving me these gifts along the way, I had this darkness trying to pull me out of being who I am. Shakespeare says, "To thine own self be true." That's a famous quote. It's because but being who you authentically were born to be is your mission here, because you have a particular place in the world. And sometimes there's a draw to pull you from doing that. And it could be that you get to a place where you're not doing anything. Like I said, you're just working and coming home and sleeping on the couch. But it also could be drugs and alcohol, or it could be gambling, or any other thing that takes you from doing what it is that you came here to do. Because I know that my life, and especially sharing my story, is making a difference in people's lives. There's an important message in just who I was born here to be. And there is for you and every single other person that has the courage to be themselves, to be their authentic selves.
Yeah. Well, and you're so right on with your message and story, because people do go through tragedy, and it's being able to just go beyond that. A lot of times people get stuck by what other people think they can accomplish or do. And it seems throughout your lifetime, that's never been something that you've really paid attention to. If other people have beliefs, it's like, that's theirs.
Yeah. Well, the book's called What is Normal? And then it's been adapted into a screenplay called WIN, which is the acronym for What is Normal. And that's really what I'm promoting or trying to find a home for. I pitched it at the Napa Valley Film Festival a few months ago, and it was a final contender. Made the top 10. There were people from all over the United States for the story. But really, Sue did struggle a little bit with what is normal, because she was getting mixed messages. One was a real strong message from her inner self source, and the other one was from the outside world. So she's trying to fit into the world's idea of normal, and finally she rejects that. And I ended up owning, a few homes and living a pretty good life, and ended up realizing that wasn't what made me happy. I met a very modest man who was the head of praise and worship for many years in the Latino community in LA, who came here from Mexico, very humble man. And, I love animals, and I just love a peaceful, real existence.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I mean, it's nice to have that authentic life that you can focus on the things that really mean something to you.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that it ends up meaning something to a whole lot of other people as well, and they can look at that as inspiration.
That's the plan, is that they realize that you can keep chasing things in the material world, and when you get them, it's like you might feel good when you're buying the car or you're buying your boat, but it goes away because it's not a deep feeling, and everything's about feelings. People drink to change their feelings. It's not the car they want. They're looking for the feeling the car gives them. It's not the new house. It's the feeling the home gives them. It's not the new guy or the woman they want. It's the feeling they're looking for. They're always chasing this feeling. And really, the best feelings for me come from things that don't cost any money. Sitting in nature, being with the animals, being with somebody who genuinely loves me and wants to spend time with me and go for a walk where we can talk about real things like how many pears are on the tree, how's our tomato plants doing, those kind of things, what's going on in the world. For a long time I wanted and did have the S-Class Mercedes, and we had a limo that took us to the sporting events and a luxury box seat and all this stuff, but it was empty for me. But that was the world's normal, and that's what I chased.
Well, and that's kind of what a lot of people look as things that would fulfill a life. But then after a period of time of having obtained some of those, it's like, well, gosh, I've got all this stuff, but I'm still unhappy,
Yes, that's the message.
Yeah. Well, Ginny, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've heard wonderful things about you.
Oh, well, thank you. You just made my day.
We have a lot of mutual acquaintances. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did know we have some people in common, so it's always nice to make that connection and get to meet some other wonderful people. So I'm so glad that we were able to connect this way.
Me too. So thank you for having me.
Oh, and where can our listeners connect with you to be part of your community?
The easiest way is whatisnormal.tv, but also, and you can order the book from there too, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and other places online, but also they can just Google myname.com, Ginny Scales-Medeiros.com.
Oh, well, thank you, Jenny. And for everyone listening out there, you want to pick up your copy of What is Normal?
I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in today. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.